half right face. Load. In. Third. 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 Freeze in. Turn. Turn. Hello. Scared the bird? Yeah.
Morning, everybody. Apologize for sitting down up here, but I had a complete knee operation not quite 2 weeks ago, and I told the guy he better be ready to stand in for me just in case, and he was kind of nervous, but I did make it. I'd like to welcome everybody to our 77th Memorial Day function here. Yesterday, I was trying to find out the weather. We were going to have it up at Rotary Park, and everything I had said about 90% chance of rain this morning, so I brought it up here instead. I see now we would have probably been all right. Looks like it's not coming in until about noon. So we'll start out with the Jefferson High School band, Salute to Old Glory. Thank you. Very good high school band, and I also mentioned it's under the direction of Denise Reinkoff. Welcome to our Memorial Day service this year. It is with pride that I stand before you today to honor all those that have sacrificed their all for this great land of ours, and to honor those now serving. May God be with them and help guide them home safely. So many of us now take our freedom for granted and have forgotten the sacrifices that are great of our great veterans and people now serving. I look out at all of you today and know that each of you here know and care about our freedoms and how we achieved them. Look back at history after our wars and how people celebrated our brave soldiers coming home and cringed with the way people treated them coming home from Vietnam. It took almost 30 years for those brave men and women to get their respect that they so richly deserve. I so appreciate all of you for coming. It is a great crowd, but only one can hope more people would really understand what this day really means for all of us. This year is the 100th anniversary of the American Legion, and it was started in 1919 in France by veterans of World War I. It is the largest of all military organizations. For whatever reason, membership is decreasing at a very rapid pace, and somehow we must change this around. How many of you have used your GI benefits? Can you guess where they came from? The American Legion. We need members. I have heard almost all the reasons of why people are not joining, but think about this. The old timers are dying off way too fast. The Legion is yours to run. And now is the time for you, and you can learn how to run it the way you want. We all need the veterans. We need a voice in Washington to help us. If you enjoy your benefits, then please join so we can keep, and so those now serving can keep them, and they are there for future generations. It is not like the old days in Washington. Each election, we end up with less military representation in Congress. Those people who are out there have no idea what we went through to get what we got now. We need a voice out in Washington to help us. Even if you don't want to be real active in a post, your membership is still extremely helpful as it gives us a voice. Last time I heard, Legion membership was down almost 80,000 this year. I think we have around 2 million members of the American Legion. Without that voice in Washington, it's hurting us immensely. As I say, each year, less and less members become involved in Congress. And we need that voice so bad out there, now more than ever. I think the last 3-4 presidents we had have no military thing behind them. When we ask for those things in Washington, and with not too many ex-military now governing us, they care less about what we want and need. What do you think sounds better? 10 million of us asking for something, or 1 million? We need you. We need you now more than ever. So please, give us some serious thought and at least join. As I say, you don't have to be part of the post, but our membership is extremely important. We can and will make a huge difference in numbers. You are the future veterans, the future leaders of our military organizations, the ones we need to keep our benefits. For many of you, I have heard the stories of how hard it is and was for you to get your benefits. Without the Legion, it will only get worse. We need that voice. We need to be strong. So sorry about the soapbox, but we as veterans, we need to stick together and maintain what we have to help all future veterans. And it's not only ours. All the military organizations are losing membership at an extremely fast pace, way too fast. We need you now, so we can keep this going and help keeping our benefits going. How many of you have had people that have come, especially now in Vietnam, Afghanistan, our wounded warriors and stuff coming home, and some of the stuff that these families have to go through just to get their benefits? It's not right. These people that came back wounded come back wounded, and the families got to fight for everything they got just so they can stay above board. It's not right. So please give us some thought. Your membership would be extremely important for us. Again, thank you all so much for coming today. Now the service songs arranged by Jerry Burns, Jefferson High School Band, under the direction of Denise Reinkoff. Thank you, Pam. Before I get any further, again, any World War II or Korean War veterans out here? We have a couple up here, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell them what branch you were from and their Korean War veterans.
I'm Don Mass, speaker today.
I'm Paul Qualley. United States Army, Korean War, 1952.
I can't beat that. Jim Dickoff, U.S. Navy from 1951 to 55, Korean War.
I'm Jim Taylor. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Served a year in Vietnam. Was in the Army from 1969 to 1972.
We were going to have presentation of colors, but we being inside here, we already got them posted. Would the Girl Scouts from Jefferson please come up, and they're going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance for us. All stand, please. Thank you so much. We now have the national anthem sung by the Jefferson High School Band and the Jefferson High School Vocal Jazz Ensemble. Again, Denise Reincroft and the Jazz Ensemble, direction of Kathy Schreck. Okay, the Memorial Day Prayer, Legion Auxiliary Chaplain, Marilyn Reed.
Please bow your heads. Dear God, may we honor and remember those who died that we might live in freedom. We remember our departed loved ones gone on before. Those that we honor will be part of our lives forever. O God, we are mindful of your great love for us. We are thankful for that love. We praise you for the blessings of love and friendship for our families and our homes. Accept our thanks, Lord, for the leaders of our posts and auxiliaries for their work this year and for their leadership. Amen.
Would all rise. I need the VFW Commander, Jim Kaler, who will be posting the POW empty chair. Please rise. You seated. Mayor Dale Opperman, welcome to the city.
Good morning. Welcome to Jefferson's 2019 Memorial Day observance. I'd like to thank all the members of the American Legion Post 164, especially Commander Eugene Robbie Robinson, who's toughing it out today. He's a leader in many different ways, and this just is another example of how much this observance means to Robbie and all the people up here, and hopefully all of you out there today. I'd also like to thank the Post and their auxiliary, along with the members of the Endo Grunner VFW Post 3589, Commander Jim Kaler, and their auxiliary for hosting and coordinating this time-honored event. I want to thank the School District of Jefferson for opening their doors to host this event today due to the pending inclement weather. So thank you very much to everyone from the school district who had a hand in this as well. I want to thank the firing squad members who shot volleys at local cemeteries this morning, as well as to everyone who served a delicious breakfast for the public at the VFW Rec Center. Once again, I'd also like to thank the members of the Jefferson High School Band and Vocal Jazz Ensemble, along with their directors Denise Reincroft and Kathy Sherrick, for once again beautifying our service with patriotic music and our national anthem. Thank you to the Jefferson Girl Scouts for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and to American Legion Auxiliary Chaplain Marilyn Reed for leading us in prayer. I'd like to thank all the veterans among us today for their service and sacrifice for our country. People like Mr. Don Nass, who we look forward to hearing from about his experiences serving. Mr. Nass and others like him are among our country's most valuable assets when it comes to remembering and learning from history in order to help us make wise and prudent decisions in the future. Finally and foremost, today we remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. May their acts of courage and heroism always be honored and remembered. Thank you.
Before I forget, I'm supposed to make an announcement. If you want to head over to the Historical Society after this, it will be open. This being the 100th anniversary of the American Legion, and plus it's also the 100th anniversary of our Legion post here in Jefferson. They do have a special display over there. There is free food and drink over there also. It's down by City Hall, underneath City Hall, in the basement up there where the old police department used to be. So if you want to go over there, I'm sure they would like to see you. I think there was one other thing I was supposed to say too, and I don't remember what it was right now. Marilyn, if you want to get in touch with me, I'll make that announcement for you. Now we're going to our guest speaker. Many of you probably are very familiar with our guest speaker, as he was born and raised in Jefferson and has lived here his entire life. His name is Don Noss. He is a veteran of World War II. Don graduated from Jefferson High School. His parents owned and operated the Home Lumber and Ice Company here in Jefferson. Don, of course, helped there during school. After high school, Don enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Guard. I have in here, I think, Air Force, but Air Force was not started at that point. They didn't form until 1947. Anyway, he was sent to Guam, where he was a gunner aboard a B-29 bomber plane. Don was involved in bombing runs to Japan in 1945. During those years, Don said he made rank almost monthly. It was very common during wartime. In 1995, with the help of his daughter Sue, Don made a video called Bomber Boy's 29 Bomb Rule. This video was shown on PBS television some time ago. If you have not seen this video, it would be well worth your time to see it. When Don returned home, he helped with the family business, eventually taking it over. If any of you are familiar with the Our Wisconsin magazine, Don had an article in there not too long ago about the ice company. After the ice and lumber company folded, Don became involved in financial services and financial business and enjoyed that so well he stayed with that until retirement. I hope you enjoy listening to Don as much as I have. Don?
Thank you, Commander Robinson. This is the first time I've been in this schoolroom, or I'd say in this school, for the past 15 to 20 years. The last time I was here, I spoke to a group of kids about the war, and it was a Friday morning. 1 week later, the following Friday, this ceiling disappeared in a storm, and you all would have been sitting underwater. I was on the crew of a B-29 bomber. We flew bombing missions from Guam to Japan. They were 16-hour trips, and there were 11 of us on the crew. I'm the only one left now, we all passed on. A tour for us at that time required us flying 35 missions. I lost my thought here a minute. I was thinking something else here, sorry. My first mission was on March 12th and 13th to the city of Kobe. It was a firebombing raid, and it was purposes to set the city on fire and burn it down. After that, I would say we flew every week we flew about 2 missions. And in that following 4 weeks, anything bad that possibly could have happened to a bomber crew happened to us. And by the end of the first 4 weeks, even though we were just starting to fly, we were both physically and mentally really almost unfit to fly anymore. During that first 4 weeks, our pilot had a nervous breakdown. He was hospitalized and sent home. Our co-pilot and our right gunner were killed. And then we flew our first daylight mission. And that was a new experience, of course, too. When we flew a daylight mission, every bomber flew up to within an hour of Japan. And there we formed up into formations and bombed in our groups and formations. And that day, when we got there to form up, there was nobody there. Our navigator had made a major mistake, and we were 200 miles from where we were supposed to be. Well, the navigator and the pilot got into it verbally over the intercom, scrapped and scrapped. Finally, the engineer stepped in He said, guys, settle this or we're not going to have gas enough to get back to Guam. So we dumped the bombs on the little island and headed back home and got home. And by that time, we were already getting pretty shaky. And then we flew a mission, I think to Nagoya. I checked my records, I'm not sure. But it involved 370 bombers. And unfortunately for us, we were at tail end Charlie's that day, or that night, I should say. When we got there, when you're the last few airplanes going over the target, they know where you've come from, they know your airspeed, they know your altitude, and they know how to pinpoint you with their searchlights, which they immediately did. And you had to start over that fire, which was unbelievable. Something is so difficult to describe. When 350 bombers already have preceded you and dropped their 10 tons of bombs, it was like Lake Kashmir on fire. And you had to fly over that. And we started in our bomb run. We could hear the flak outside. If you've never heard flak, and I'm sure none of you had, it sounds like if you were driving down the main street of Jefferson and people on both sides of the sidewalk were throwing gravel at you. When the flak goes through and it destroys whatever it hits, whether it's a body or an airplane. Well, we had just started over the bomb run, over the fire, opened our bomb bay doors, dropped the bombs. Our bombardier was in the process of closing the doors when we got hit. We got hit in the left wing and our #1 engine quit. And that's when we all thought, this is it for us. But we managed to get over that fire on 3 engines, and we flew home on 3 engines. And instead of the normal 8 hours to get home, it took us 10. Had we lost one more engine, I wouldn't be here talking to you today, because very rarely, if you had a ditch in that huge Pacific, did anybody ever get found when that happened. That day, before we went to sleep, we talked about what had happened to date, and we pretty well agreed, if this continues like this, we are not going to finish 35 missions. But then, our luck changed. We went to Osaka, which was the 2nd largest city in Japan with over 3 million people. And we had an incident happen to us on that trip that was so unusual and, to be real frank, so hilarious, it brought us back mentally and physically. It's not a story that lends itself towards telling on Memorial Day, because what it did for us is change our thinking, our attitude. It acted as a stress reliever for us. It made it easier from then on to climb into airplanes after that, and I firmly believe to this day it saved our lives. So I'm going to tell you what happened that day. You're going to enjoy it, because it was hilarious. But first you have to understand what the B-29 was like, because it only could have happened on an airplane like the B-29. The B-29 was a huge airplane. It was state-of-the-art. There was no airplane like it in the world at that time. It was soundproofed, it was heated, it was pressurized. It had a computer on it to help us aim the guns to defend ourselves. 6 of the crew rode in the front of the plane, 4 in the center, and the tail gunner had his own private compartment that was heated and pressurized. And the front and center section were connected by a 40-foot long tunnel that ran over the 2 bomb bays, so we could crawl back and forth between those 2 areas. I was the senior gunner on the airplane. I had gone to school at Denver for 3 months to learn how this gunnery system worked, because all the guns on the B-29 to fire it were shot by remote control. We didn't sit in the turrets. I sat in the center of the plane on a raised platform with my head in this plastic dome on a revolving chair, and I controlled all 12 machine guns from there, which were housed in 5 different turrets. So, the particular mission, as I said, that we went on that night, I can remember like it happened yesterday, and it's only because of what happened and the fact that it was so hilarious. We talked about it for weeks afterwards, and even at reunions after that. I can remember every detail like it happened yesterday. When we went to the briefing that morning, they said we were going to Osaka, and the mission would be 16 hours and 2 minutes long. They always did that to show off. And at our particular takeoff time that night was exactly 6 o'clock in the evening, which would put us over the target at 2 in the morning of the next day. Every bomber on the night mission was allotted 1 minute for takeoff and through the entire mission alone. So away we went. 6 hours into the trip, the navigator called, as he always did. We're 2 hours from Japan. And for me, that meant climbing into that seat where I'd be for the next 5 hours until we were well clear of Japan and out of range of their fighters. So we all went to the toilet one more time. This was where it gets interesting. In the back, where we were, we had an 18-inch can. It had a cover, it had a handle, and it slid down into the sleeve, and it was back in the radar room, and that was our toilet. Of course, we could use that for number 1 or number 2. Now, if you have any trouble with these numbers, ask one of your neighbors. I'm not going to try and describe that. Up in front, there wasn't room, but there was a tube that ran from the flight deck out to the bottom of the airplane, and it had a valve in it to keep the air from rushing out. Otherwise, it would have been more difficult to pressurize the cabin. And that night, our co-pilot, his name was Bruce Ilton, got up to use that tube. What Bruce didn't know, or none of us knew, was that that valve had frozen open and the air was rushing out to that tube, and it created a tremendous suction on the business end. I know you know this. When Bruce put his Oscar Mayer into the end of that tube, he became an instant and painful captive of that thing. All of a sudden, and it was midnight, we heard this screaming through the tunnel. And when you're that close to Japan and you're nervous as it is, that's something you didn't want to hear. Well, it went on and on, got louder and louder. Finally, the pilot came on the air in the intercom. He says, "Guys, we have an emergency. Put on your oxygen masks. We have to depressurize the cabin." So we did. Finally, the yelling stopped. He came on the air again. He said, "Okay, guys, you can take your masks off. We've solved the problem." And that's all we knew about it until we landed 10 hours later. And while we were waiting for the truck to pick us up to haul us back to the base, I went up to the pilot. And I said, "Captain, what was the screaming about last night? Oh, I was scared as half to death." Well, he told us what happened to Bruce. We laughed so hard, we could hardly stand up. Then Bruce came up to us. Bruce wasn't laughing. Bruce was livid. I won't tell you what he said because I think there's a minister in the crowd. But his final words were, "This is as far as this story is ever going to go." We all shook our heads up and down. He was in no mood to joke with. All except Zollner, our navigator. Bob had guts, I'll say that. He went up to Bruce and he said, "Bruce, that's a war injury. You can get the Purple Heart for that." If the pilot and engineer wouldn't have grabbed those two, they'd have beaten each other to death. Well, the truck came, hauled us back to the base, left us off at the medical facility. Every crew member, after every bombing mission, was given a shot of whiskey. And those were doled out in that facility by a little corporal who loved that job. When you walked in, there were row after row of shot glasses lined up, filled with whiskey, 11 shot glasses. And you just said, "Well, we're the Carter crew," and he would cross that us off on his checklist and say, "Help yourselves to that row." Well, our bombardier's name was Aaron Levine, and his station on the plane was right by that tube. When Aaron grabbed that shot glass and tossed it in his mouth, just at that moment, Zollner again yells out, "A toast to suction." Aaron blew that whiskey out of his mouth, into the corporal's face, down his uniform. He contaminated all those shot glasses. That guy lost it. This is hard to describe. He said to us, let's see, I lost my train of thought. He lost his train of thought there. I just tuned it out. Anyway, let's see, where were we? Oh, I lost my train of thought here. Anyway, oh yeah, the shot glasses, yeah. We decided then that what's his name? This fellow that doled out the thing. He told us. He said, "Get the hell out of here," and we went. Well, we had an incident. I told you before how it was difficult for us to get into that airplane during the time that this happened, and that this was a stress relief for us when this incident happened. Well, when this happened, after that, it was time when we were going on missions after that. Every so often, somebody would get on the intercom and he would say something to the effect, referring to that incident that happened that night. And some of those stories were so laughable. I wish I would have written them down because they commented about what happened to Bruce that night. I do remember one. We were almost home to Guam, and we were sleepy, and the sun was shining into the windows, and this high-pitched voice came over the intercom, and it said, "You know, I wonder sometimes how a tiny little thing like that can get caught in that tube." And that was me. I had gone into the radar room. It's dark in there. And the radar operator had nothing to do. We were almost at Guam. He was lying on the couch, sound asleep. So I went up, sat down at his desk, plugged in, and said that. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble now. So when I walked out of the radar room back into the gunner room, the sun was shining in there, and Eddie Zeta, one of the gunners, said, oh, Nass, you should have heard what that guy said. This was the best one yet. Then I knew, of course, that he had never had to caught on. I think he thought I went to the toilet, because the toilet was back there. Well, that's the end, I guess, of the funny stuff. I'm just going to give a thought here a minute. When it comes to the war itself, I have a little trouble talking about it. So I think today probably we're going to go home. Some of us will probably fire up the grill. We'll probably spend the rest of the day with our families. But sometime between now and when you lay your head on your pillow tonight, you think about the thousands of people that died to create this country for us and a system of government. And then give a thought to the countless thousands more that gave their lives to keep this country together in the Civil War and right up to now to keep it safe for us. We owe it to them, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the people that come after us to do everything in our power to keep it this way. That's our legacy. Shortly, we'll probably hear the sound of rifles being fired by our squad as a salute to those who have passed on before us and are now sleeping in God's arms. I'm sorry. That will be followed by the playing of taps. I'd like to close my talk today with the words from taps. Day is done, gone the sun. From the lake, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh. And may that same God bless all of us today, and may He bless our country. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Don. I've only known Don a couple years myself, and I've got to go up and visit with him a couple different times. 2 years ago, when I was in charge of this, I had my guest speaker, and right afterwards, I happened to meet Don. I was told about Don by Kenny Pugh, who was also a World War II veteran and unfortunately is no longer with us. But at that point, I asked Don if he would speak for me this year. And he said, if I'm still around, yes, I will. I did not tell anybody that I had already had my speaker already 2 years ago. I was kind of afraid last year the VFW ran this, and I certainly didn't want them stealing them away from me. So I kept it quiet, and then a couple months back, Dale Opperman, the mayor here, he come up to me and wanted to know if I had a speaker for this year, and I said, yes, I do. He thought, it's too bad. He said, I got a really good one for you. I said, who'd you have? It was Don Noss. I already got him, Neil. Thanks so much for the information anyway. I just remember what Marilyn told me. They're having a drawing for a free flag up at the museum. And so if anybody goes up there, you can sign up for that. And good luck on anybody that does that. Before I get too much further, would all the veterans out there in the audience, would you please stand? All veterans, please stand. Thank you all for your service, and I salute you. With the Legion Auxiliary, all Legion Auxiliary members, please stand. Thank all of you for the help you give our troops. We will now do the Marine service, and the ladies are out front here. Would you please conduct the Marine service?
Thank you, Robbie. Today we honor a very special group of Americans, men and women who served our country and who gave their lives in the service. Since those first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord in the Revolutionary War, over 1 million Americans have died in defense of our liberty and freedom. In peacetime and in war, these Americans answered our nation's call and defended our American way of life. In honoring them today, we place this wreath at this memorial. We recognize their dedication, courage, and sacrifice. We also celebrate the freedom they gave us.
These men and women were much the same as we are. They had the same dreams, hopes, and ambitions. But when called upon, they put aside their personal interests and answered a higher calling. In dying for our country, they passed on to us a legacy of liberty and freedom, and they also passed on to us a commitment to preserve what they had died for. It's a commitment that each of us must take part in fulfilling. It's a commitment to America.
For over 200 years, we have taken part in what the government laid down in the Constitution, and we have enjoyed our freedoms guaranteed by the Bill of Rights. In doing so, we have lived the dreams of the founders of our country, those Americans who defied centuries of tyranny with their Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, with certain unalienable rights of life, of which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Together, these documents are the roots of America, and in them one finds the character of America. a character of determination to be free and to remain free.
Please join the VFW and Legion Post and auxiliaries as we honor the men and women who have sacrificed their lives for our country. And when we, the living, fulfill our commitments as citizens of this country, we make America a living memorial to their dedication, courage, and sacrifice. Our chaplain will lead us in prayer.
Please bow your head. Dear Lord, bless the men and women who serve our country, especially those who have given their lives that we may enjoy the freedoms of our democracy. Keep them and us under your watchful care. Bless our troops and those who have gone to their eternal rest. Amen.
Thank you, Auxiliary, for that. Now we will do the muster roll call for the veterans lost this past year. Drum roll volley, please. Missed from 1998, Rudolph Rudy Pitterly, World War II. Donald Kaczynski, peacetime. Edwin Barrett, World War II. Richard Fisher, peacetime. Michael Caper, Vietnam. Daniel Reed, Vietnam. Robert Punzel, Vietnam. Gerald Gowdy, peacetime. Ronald Walter, Vietnam. Wayne Murdoch, peacetime. Leonard Businski, peacetime. Dwayne Patefield, Vietnam. John Rue, Korea. John Otto, peacetime. Peter Germanson, peacetime. Ronald Giles, Korea. Michael Bobos, Vietnam. Robert Harriet, peacetime. Gary Lenz, Vietnam. Andrew Singing, World War II. Paul Froman, World War II. Joel Braunschweig, peacetime. Now the honor guard will do the rifle volley. VFW Commander Kaler, would you please retire POW MIA banner? In closing, I'd like to thank all of you for coming today. I'd like to thank the high school band under Denise Reincroft and the band vocal jazz ensemble under the direction of Kathy Schreck, and the auxiliary, and our honor guard, and all you veterans. Be safe out there. Don't forget to keep a thought and prayers for all of ours now serving and their families. Again, we do not have to retire colors because we have them posted here. And now the Jefferson High School Band is honored by Fillmore, arranged by Larry Clark. How about another round of applause for the high school band? How about a round of a hand for our Girl Scouts that helped us out here? Those men stand up, please. Girl Scouts, want to stand up? Thank you to our veterans up on stage and all you veterans out in the audience. And everybody, thanks so much for coming today. See you next year. Pass the word around. I'd like to see more of it. Last but not least, Principal Steve Dingle. I don't know where he went to, but thanks for opening up the school for us so we can use it today. See everybody next year.